Welcome back to Rome Before You Go, the podcast that helps you understand the eternal city before you ever set foot on a cobblestone. I'm Sarah, and as always, I'm joined by our resident Rome expert, Giovanni. Giovanni, good to have you back.
Always a pleasure, Sarah. Especially today, because this is the episode one wish every first-timer would listen to before they open a booking website.
That's a strong opening, and I love it. But before we get into it, let's quickly remind everyone where we left off. In our first episode, we talked about whether Rome is even the right trip for you right now. We discussed the honest realities, the heat, the cobblestones, the crowds, the walking. We talked about how 3 days feels rushed, how 5 is the sweet spot, and how the season you choose changes the texture of the entire trip. So we've now got a listener who has decided, yes, Rome is happening, and they're starting to think about how long to stay. Which means the next question, naturally, is where on earth do I sleep?
And it is one of the most consequential decisions you will make, more than people realize. In some cities, your hotel is just a place to sleep. In Rome, your neighborhood becomes the rhythm of your trip. It shapes what you eat for breakfast, how tired your feet are by 4 p.m., whether you go back to your room to rest in the afternoon, whether you go out after dinner or collapse into bed. The neighborhood is the trip, in a way.
Before we dive in, one quick housekeeping note. We're going to be throwing around a lot of euro figures today. Nightly hotel rates, city tax amounts, that sort of thing. All of these numbers are accurate at the time of recording. But Giovanni, prices in Rome are not exactly trending downward, are they?
They are not. Rome has had a steady drift upward for years, and after the 2025 Jubilee, the hospitality market repriced itself in a way that has not really come back down. So treat every euro figure we mention today as a snapshot. Use them as a frame of reference for the relative differences. What budget looks like versus mid-range versus luxury. What a 4-star hotel pays in city tax versus a 3-star, rather than as a guarantee of what you'll pay next year.
And if you're listening to this in 2030 and laughing at us because our budget figure is now what a hostel charges, please do write in and tell us. We'll be the elderly podcasters in the corner muttering about how you used to be able to get a B&B for €6 a night in city tax.
Exactly. The numbers will move. The framework won't. So with that out of the way, let's actually walk listeners through where to stay.
So today, we're going to walk listeners through the 5 neighborhoods first-timers typically choose between. Then we'll talk about how to evaluate location against the sites you actually want to see. And then we'll get into the budget side, which I think is where a lot of people make decisions they later regret. Giovanni, where do we start?
Let's start with what I would call the postcard option, the historic center. In Italian, the centro storico. This is the area bounded loosely by the Tiber on one side, the Piazza Venezia and the Capitoline on the other, and stretching up toward the Spanish Steps and down toward Campo dei Fiori. It includes the Pantheon, Piazza Navona, the Trevi Fountain, and the warren of small streets between them.
When I picture Rome in my head, I think I'm picturing the historic center.
You almost certainly are, and that is exactly the appeal and exactly the trap. Staying in the Centro Storico means you walk out of your hotel door, you turn a corner, and you are at the Pantheon. You wake up early, you have a cornetto and an espresso, and you are at Piazza Navona before the tour groups arrive. There is something genuinely magical about that. You feel like you are inside the city rather than commuting to it.
And what's the trap?
2 traps, really. The first is noise. These streets were not designed for delivery trucks, for tourists rolling suitcases over cobblestones at 11 p.m. for the early morning garbage collection. If your window faces a small street, you will hear all of it. Ask for a courtyard-facing room, always. The second trap is price. You pay a premium for this location, and a lot of the restaurants in the immediate radius of the Pantheon and Piazza Navona are tourist-oriented. The food is not always bad, but it is rarely great, and it is almost always overpriced.
So you pay more to stay there, and then you pay more to eat there.
Unless you know where to go, which, by the end of this series, you will. But for the historic center, here's how I'd think about it. If you have 5 days, you do not want to walk 40 minutes back to your hotel for a midday rest. You want to walk 8 minutes. That convenience is worth real money to a lot of people. If you have 3 days and you're going to be out from morning until night, the premium is harder to justify.
Give me a sensory picture. What does a morning in the Centro Storico actually feel like?
You step out at 7:30, the streets are damp because the cleaning trucks have just passed. There is a smell of espresso from a bar on the corner. You hear shutters being rolled up by shopkeepers. You walk past the Pantheon, and there are maybe 15 people in the piazza instead of 1,500. A nun crosses in front of you. The light is gold on the columns. You sit down at a bar, you stand at the counter actually, and you have your coffee with a man in a suit, reading the sports pages. That moment is what people pay for when they stay in the Centro Storico. Whether it's worth it to you, only you can answer.
Okay, neighborhood number 2.
Trastevere, across the river. The name literally means across the Tiber. It is medieval. It is photogenic to the point of being almost too much, and it has become one of the most popular areas for visitors to stay over the last 15 years.
I've heard mixed things about Trastevere lately.
And the mixed things are real. Trastevere is beautiful. The streets are narrow and twisting, the buildings are ochre and rust and pale yellow, the laundry hangs from windows, the ivy climbs the walls. In the morning, it can feel like a village, but Trastevere is also one of the loudest, most party-oriented neighborhoods in Rome on weekend nights. If you stay near Piazza Santa Maria in Trastevere or Piazza Trilussa, you will hear people drinking and shouting outside your window until 2 or 3 in the morning. Every single weekend, this is not an exaggeration.
So Trastevere by day, somewhere else by night?
Or Trastevere on a weeknight, or Trastevere on a side street further from the main piazzas. There is a quieter, more residential part of Trastevere, south of Viale di Trastevere, around the Basilica of Santa Cecilia. That part is still beautiful, still has the cobblestones and the ivy, but the noise level is completely different. If you want the Trastevere feeling without the Trastevere headache, that is where to look.
And what's daily life like there for a visitor?
Wonderful, honestly. You have proper neighborhood bakeries. You have one of the best food markets in the city at Piazza San Cosimato in the mornings. You have small trattorias that are not perfect anymore, but still good. You can walk across Ponte Sisto into the historic center in 15 minutes. The Tiber Riverside path along that stretch was reopened and repaved in 2025, so even the river-level walk is pleasant now, which it wasn't always. You can walk up the Janiculum Hill for one of the best views in Rome. There is a sense of place in Trastevere that you do not get in a more polished neighborhood.
We've actually got a tour that covers part of this area, don't we?
We do. Our 2 sides of the Tiber tour in the app walks through Trastevere and the Jewish ghetto across the river. It's a good way to understand the rhythm of the neighborhood once you're on the ground, especially if you decide to stay there. But back to the staying question.
Right. So who should choose Trastevere's?
Someone who values atmosphere over proximity to the ancient sites. Someone who is willing to walk 20 to 25 minutes to the Colosseum or take a tram. Someone who wants their evenings to feel like Rome, rather than feel like a museum closing time. And someone who books carefully and asks about which side of the building their room is on.
Okay. Neighborhood 3. Where are we going?
Monti. This is my personal favorite for first-time visitors who want to feel like residents rather than tourists. Monti sits between the Colosseum and Termini station, but it is a world of its own. The streets are still cobblestoned, the buildings are still old, but the energy is different. It has independent boutiques, wine bars, vintage shops, neighborhood restaurants that have not been ruined by tourism.
And it's close to the ancient sites.
Extremely close. From most hotels in Monti, you can walk to the Colosseum in 10 minutes. You can walk to the Trevi Fountain in 15. You can walk to the Pantheon in 20. It is one of the most efficiently located neighborhoods in the entire city for a first-time visitor's typical itinerary.
So why doesn't everybody stay there?
2 reasons. 1, the inventory is smaller. There are fewer big hotels in Monti. It's more boutique hotels, apartment rentals, smaller family-run places, so it can be harder to find availability. 2. Monti has become more discovered in the last decade. Prices have climbed. It is not the secret it used to be.
Give me the Monti morning.
You walk down Via dei Serpenti, which is one of those streets that just keeps revealing itself. You stop at a coffee bar where the barista knows the regulars. You see a man walking a dog who has clearly walked this same route every morning for 30 years. You see a vintage shop opening its shutters, a wine bar that won't open until evening, a fountain and a small piazza where teenagers will gather later. There is a sense that real people live here, not just hospitality workers and tourists, but Romans with jobs and apartments and routines. That is rare in the parts of Rome most visitors see.
Why do you say it's the most livable for first-time visitors?
Because it offers the best balance of the three things that matter most: proximity to the major sites, genuine local atmosphere, and a manageable evening scene. Monti has good wine bars, good restaurants, good aperitivo culture, but it does not become a nightclub at midnight. You can sleep. And you can wake up and walk to the Forum.
Okay, you're selling it. Neighborhood 4.
Prati, the neighborhood around the Vatican. This is a very different beast. Prati was built in the late 19th and early 20th centuries after Italian unification. It has wide, straight boulevards. It has Art Nouveau apartment buildings. It feels almost Parisian in places, with the trees and the symmetrical streets. It is the most orderly, modern-feeling neighborhood we'll discuss today.
And it's right next to the Vatican.
Right next to it. You can walk to St. Peter's in 5 to 10 minutes from most Prati hotels. The Vatican Museum's entrance is on the north side, also walking distance. If your trip is heavily Vatican-focused, or if you have specific reasons to be near the Vatican, a Wednesday papal audience, and early morning Vatican Museums booking Prati makes a great deal of sense.
What's the catch?
Historically, Prati was on the wrong side of the river for most of the rest of Rome. I would have told you that 2 years ago without hesitation. But the calculation has changed. After the 2025 Jubilee, the city pedestrianized Piazza Pia, the area between Castel Sant'Angelo and St. Peter's. They moved the traffic underground into an extended underpass. What used to be a vehicle-choked intersection is now Rome's largest continuous pedestrian plaza, paved with travertine and Sampietrini, connecting directly to the historic center across Castel Sant'Angelo Bridge.
So the walk from Prati to the Centro Storico is actually pleasant now.
Genuinely pleasant. You can walk from a Prati hotel past Castel Sant'Angelo, across the pedestrianized plaza, over the bridge, and into the streets behind Piazza Navona in about 20 minutes, without crossing a single major road. That changes the Prati equation. It is still further from the Colosseum, still a metro ride or a long walk to the ancient zone, but the connection to the heart of the historic center is now one of the nicest walks in the city.
What else does Prati offer?
Some of the best food in Rome that tourists don't know about. The street Viacola di Rienzo is a real food street, with bakeries, gelato, supply shops, wine bars, and several excellent restaurants that serve Romans, not tour groups. You also have Mercato Trionfale, which is one of the largest covered food markets in the city. If you are a serious eater, Prati can be a delight, because the moment you walk 3 blocks away from the Vatican walls, the prices drop and the quality rises.
So Prati is for the Vatican-focused traveler and the food-focused traveler.
Yes, and one more group, people who want a calmer, quieter base. Prati at night is residential, it is not buzzing, families with children sometimes prefer it for that reason. People who want to feel like they're in a real European city rather than a movie set sometimes prefer it. It's a less postcardy Rome, but it is genuinely Roman.
Okay. Neighborhood 5. And I have a feeling I know which one's coming.
Termini, the area around Rome's main train station. And we need to have an honest conversation about Termini, because every first-time visitor sees that the cheapest hotels in Rome are around Termini, and they have to decide whether that's a smart move or a mistake.
Let's have the honest conversation.
Termini is not what it used to be. 20 years ago, it had a reputation for being seedy, unsafe, the kind of place you avoid after dark. That has changed considerably. The station has been renovated. The square directly in front of it, Piazza de Cinquecento, was reorganized as part of the Jubilee Works. The unauthorized parking and the chaotic vehicle flows that used to define the area have been replaced with an integrated public garden square. It is now a coordinated multimodal transit hub rather than a free-for-all. The improvement is real.
But
it is still not a charming neighborhood. The streets are wider, the buildings are 19th century apartment blocks, the energy is transient because it's near a major transport hub. You have a lot of luggage being rolled. You have a lot of people who arrived an hour ago and don't know where they're going. The streets immediately east of the station, around Piazza Vittorio, have an interesting multicultural character, but are not what most visitors picture when they imagine Rome. The streets immediately west, toward Via Nazionale, are more traditional but feel more like a commercial corridor than a neighborhood.
so who is Termini right for?
3 specific kinds of travelers. 1. People who are taking day trips. If you're going to Florence, Naples, or Pompeii for the day, being able to walk to the train is genuinely valuable. 2. People on tight budgets who would otherwise not be able to afford a Rome trip at all. The price difference between a Termini hotel and a Centro Storico hotel can be €100 a night or more. If that's the difference between coming to Rome and not coming to Rome, stay in Termini and use the metro. 3. People with very early or very late flights from Fiumicino. The Leonardo Express train runs directly from Termini to the airport, so convenience for arrival and departure is real.
And who should not stay in Termini?
Anyone who has the budget for a more central option and who values atmosphere. The walk from Termini to the Colosseum is about 20 minutes through streets that are not particularly inspiring. You will end up taking the metro or buses every day, which is fine, but is not the Rome experience you came for. You will not stroll out of your hotel into a movie. You will stroll out into a busy street and walk to a metro station.
I want to ask a follow-up. Within Termini, are some areas better than others?
Yes. North of the station, toward Via Marsala and Castro Pretorio, you have some surprisingly good small hotels and a calmer atmosphere. South of the station, toward Esquilino and Piazza Vittorio, you have a more multicultural, more affordable area that some people find very interesting and others find disorienting. West of the station, between Termini and Via Nazionale, you are getting closer to Monti and the historic center, and the area improves block by block as you walk west. If you must stay in Termini, walk west from it. Every block toward Monti or the Centro Storico makes the area better.
Okay, so we've got our 5. The historic center, Trastevere, Monti, Prati, and Termini. Are there any honorable mentions you'd add?
2 quick ones. Testaccio, south of Trastevere, is a fantastic food neighborhood with a genuine Roman character and very few tourists. It is further from the major sites, but if you've been to Rome before, or if you really care about food, it's a beautiful base. And the area around the Spanish Steps, which is technically part of the historic center, but feels different. More luxury shopping, more boutique hotels, more expensive in general. If you have a high budget and you want elegance, that area delivers it, but you pay for it.
Let's pivot. We've described the neighborhoods. Now I want to talk about how a listener actually chooses between them. Because I think most people pick a neighborhood emotionally. They see a photo of Trastevere, they fall in love, they book. What's a smarter way to do it?
I have a framework I give people. 3 steps. Step 1, make a list of the 5 or 6 things you most want to do in Rome. Step 2, put those things on a mental map. Step 3, find the neighborhood whose center sits roughly in the middle of your list.
Okay, let's work through that. Imagine I'm a first-time visitor, and my list is the Colosseum, the Forum, the Vatican, the Pantheon, the Trevi Fountain, and a Trastevere dinner. Where do I stay?
Look at the geography. The Colosseum and the Forum are in the southeast of the historic center. The Vatican is across the river to the west. The Pantheon and the Trevi Fountain are in the middle. Trastevere is in the southwest. Where is the center of that constellation? It's roughly in the historic center, slightly toward the south. So, a Centro Storico hotel near Campo dei Fiori or Largo di Torre Argentina would put you within 20 minutes, walk of almost everything on your list.
And if my list is heavier on the Vatican, say 2 days at the Vatican museums, an audience with the Pope, St. Peter's, a tour of the necropolis,
then your center of gravity shifts west. Prati becomes the obvious answer. And as I mentioned, the walk to the historic center is now much better than it used to be, so the cross-river days are easier than they would have been before 2025.
what if my list is more food and atmosphere focused? Multiple Trastevere dinners, market mornings, just wandering, plus the basic sights.
Then Trastevere or Monti, depending on how much nightlife you want. Trastevere if you want the bohemian feel and don't mind weekend noise. Monti if you want the village feel without the chaos.
And what's the mistake people make with this framework?
The most common mistake is that they look at a map, see that something is 2 kilometers away, and think 2 kilometers is nothing. In a flat city with sidewalks, 2 kilometers is nothing. In Rome, 2 kilometers can be 25 minutes on cobblestones in 32-degree heat after you've already walked 8 kilometers that day. Distance in Rome is not measured in kilometers. It is measured in fatigue.
Tell me more about that.
By day 3 of a Rome trip, your feet are sore. The cobblestones are not flat. You are walking more than you walk at home. You are also dehydrated, possibly hungover, possibly jet-lagged. Every kilometer back to your hotel feels like 2. So the value of being close to where you are spending your day is not linear. It increases the longer your trip goes on. A hotel 10 minutes from the Forum versus 30 minutes from the Forum is not 3 times better. By day 4, it's 6 times better.
That's a really important point. So proximity is worth paying for, especially on longer trips.
Yes, and here's the corollary, the midday rest. Romans rest in the middle of the day. They go home, they eat lunch, they close their shutters, they sit. Visitors who fight this and try to push through from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. without a break end up exhausted and miserable. If your hotel is 15 minutes from where you're sightseeing, you can go back, lie down, change clothes, and come out again refreshed. If your hotel is 45 minutes away, you can't. So you don't rest. So you burn out. So your last 2 days are worse than your first 2.
Speaking of midday rest, where we discuss this district in our Roman Rhapsody tour, we walk between the Trevi Fountain and the Pantheon, and you can really feel how close these landmarks are when you're staying centrally.
Exactly. The historic center is genuinely compact. If you're staying there, you can rest between visits in a way that's not possible from further out. Now, let me make a case I haven't made yet. There is one major exception to the closer is better rule, and that's noise sensitivity.
Right, you mentioned this with Trastevere.
It applies everywhere central. The most central neighborhoods are also the loudest. Delivery trucks before dawn, garbage collection at 5, drunk tourists at midnight, church bells that you'll romanticize for one night and then hate by night 3. So when I say stay central, I should add, stay central but choose your room carefully. Ask for courtyard side. Ask for a higher floor. Read recent reviews specifically for noise. The difference between a great room and a terrible room in the same hotel can be enormous in Rome.
Let's get into budget. I think this is where listeners are most anxious. Walk me through what different price points actually get you.
Let's break it into 4 bands: budget, mid-range, upper mid-range, and luxury. I'll talk in approximate per night euros for 2 people, low season versus high season. And then we'll talk separately about the city tax, because that catches people out.
Go for it.
Budget. Under 120 euros a night in low season, up to 180 in high season. At this level, you are looking at 3-star hotels in less central neighborhoods, mostly around Termini. You might also find good hostels with private rooms. You will get a clean, basic, small room with private bathroom. You will likely not get breakfast, or you'll get a very basic one. You will probably be 10 to 20 minutes by metro or bus from the historic center.
And is that fine?
It can be totally fine. A clean bed and a hot shower and a metro stop nearby is all you actually need. The question is whether you'd rather pay 80 euros for a Termini hotel and 30 euros for a taxi when you're exhausted at midnight, or 130 euros for a Centro Storico hotel and walk home for free. The math gets surprisingly even, and the experience is very different.
Mid-range.
Mid-range, 150 to 280 euros a night. This is where you find well-located 3-star and small 4-star hotels in Monti, Prati, parts of Trastevere, and on the edges of the historic center. The rooms get bigger. The breakfast gets better. The bathrooms get nicer. You start to get some character. A frescoed ceiling, a small terrace, a courtyard. This is the sweet spot for most first-time visitors who are not on a strict budget and not splurging. You sleep well, you walk to most things, you don't feel like you're slumming, and you don't feel like you're paying for chandeliers you don't need.
Upper mid-range.
Upper mid-range, 280 to 500 euros a night. Now you're in well-located 4-star hotels in the historic center or charming boutique hotels in Monti or Trastevere. You're getting design. You're getting a real breakfast spread, often a roof terrace, often a small spa or wellness area. You're getting service that anticipates you. They remember your name. They know your coffee order on day 2. For a special trip, an anniversary, a milestone, this is the band where Rome starts to feel pampering rather than just comfortable.
And then luxury.
Luxury, 500 euros and well up from there. The 5-star hotels in Rome are genuinely extraordinary. The Hassler, the De Rossi, the Eden, the Hotel d'Inghilterra. You're getting historic palazzos, world-class restaurants, rooftop bars with the dome of St. Peter's at the horizon. You're paying for it, but you are getting something real. If money is no object, Rome does luxury beautifully.
Where is the hidden value? Where do people get the best return on their money?
3 places I'd point to. First, the upper end of mid-range in Monti. You can get a boutique hotel with character 10 minutes from the Colosseum for around 250 euros a night in shoulder season. That same room in the Centro Storico would be 400. You're paying for location, not quality, and Monti's location is excellent. So Monti is the hidden value play for mid-range travelers.
Okay, that's one.
Second, apartment rentals in Trastevere and Monti. A well-chosen 1-bedroom apartment for a week can come out to less than a mid-range hotel per night, and you get a kitchen, a washing machine, more space, and a more residential feel. The catch is that the booking is harder to verify, the check-in can be complicated, and you don't have a concierge. But for travelers who don't need hand-holding, apartments can be excellent value.
Third?
Convents and religious guest houses. Rome has dozens of them, many in the historic center, in beautiful old buildings, often with gardens. They are not luxurious, but they are clean, calm, well-located, and inexpensive. They often have curfews, which is not for everyone, and they often don't have air conditioning, which is a problem in July and August. But for travelers in spring and autumn who don't need to be out at 1 a.m., they offer extraordinary value in central locations. The Casa per Frey circuit is worth researching.
What about the other direction? What's overpriced?
Generic 4-star chain hotels in mediocre locations. You pay 300 euros a night for a Marriott or a Hilton that could be in any city in the world, in a location that's neither charming nor convenient. You're paying for the brand and the loyalty points. If those things matter to you, fine. But if you're choosing Rome because you want to experience Rome, that money is better spent on a smaller, more characterful hotel in a better location.
Now, you mentioned the city tax. Let's spend a minute on that, because I have a feeling listeners don't know what to expect.
Rome has a tourist tax called the Contributo di Soggiorno. It is not optional, it is not included in your hotel booking total, and it is paid in cash or by card directly to your accommodation, usually at check-in or check-out. The rates are tiered by accommodation category, and they were last adjusted upward in late 2023, so even if you've been to Rome before, the numbers may have changed.
Give me the figures.
5-star and luxury hotels are 10 euros per person per night. 4-star hotels are 7 euros 50. 3-star hotels and bed and breakfasts and short-stay vacation rentals are 6 euros. 2-star is 5 euros. 1-star is 4. Hostels are 3 to 3.5. Guest houses range from 5 to 7, depending on category. So for 2 people staying 5 nights in a mid-range 3-star, or B&B, you're looking at €60 in city tax on top of your booking. That's real money, and it's worth budgeting for.
Are there any exemptions?
Yes, two important ones. Children 10 years of age or younger pay nothing. So if you're traveling with young kids, the tax only applies to the adults. And the tax is capped at 10 consecutive nights. After 10 nights at the same accommodation, you stop paying. That mostly affects long-stay visitors, but it's worth knowing.
What if I split my trip? 3 nights in Rome, weekend in Florence, 3 more nights back in Rome.
Then your night counter resets. The continuous stay clause means the 10-night cap only applies if you stay continuously. If you check out and come back, you start a new cycle. So a split trip pays the tax from night 1 again on the second leg.
Anything else listeners should know about it?
One important compliance point, you are legally entitled to receive a formal receipt for the tax you pay. Not just an item on your hotel bill, but a proper receipt. If the accommodation refuses to give you one or seems vague about it, that's a sign they may not be registering your stay with the municipality, which usually means they're unregistered themselves, which often means problems if something goes wrong with the booking. Always ask for the receipt. It takes 30 seconds, and it tells you whether you're staying somewhere legitimate.
That's a great practical tip. What other booking traps should we warn people about?
Several. First, photos. Hotel photos in Rome are notoriously misleading, especially for the smaller properties. Always cross-reference with recent guest photos on review sites. Second, the difference between historic center on the listing and historic center in reality. Some hotels advertise themselves as historic center when they are 25 minutes walking from the Pantheon. Look at the actual address on a map. Don't trust the marketing.
What else?
Breakfast inclusion. Italian hotel breakfast can be wonderful, or it can be a sad croissant in plastic wrap. If breakfast is included, read what people say about it. If not, you'll likely have better and cheaper breakfast at the bar around the corner, so don't pay a premium for it. Air conditioning in July and August confirm explicitly that the room has it. Some older buildings still don't. You do not want to discover this at 2 a.m. with the city at 30 degrees and your window open onto a noisy street.
That's a Rome-specific concern that I don't think people who haven't been there think about.
It's an essential one. And one more. Elevators. Rome is a city of palazzos, which means a city of stairs. A beautiful 16th century building with a hotel on the 3rd floor may not have an elevator. If you have any mobility concerns, or just suitcases, ask explicitly. Don't assume.
Let me ask the question listeners are probably forming in their heads. If you had to pick one neighborhood as your default recommendation for a first-time visitor on a mid-range budget, what would it be?
Monti. Without hesitation. I'd recommend Monti to 9 out of 10 first-time visitors who are not specifically Vatican-focused and who don't have a strong reason to be elsewhere. It hits the balance better than anywhere else. Close to the ancient sites, walkable to everything else. Real neighborhood feel, good restaurants, manageable noise, and the prices are still reasonable compared to the Centro Storico.
And the other end of the question, when would Monti be wrong?
When you're spending most of your time at the Vatican. Or when you're on a true budget and need to be near Termini. Or when you specifically want the bohemian, theatrical, photogenic Trastevere vibe and you're willing to trade convenience for it. Or when you have a luxury budget and you want to be on the Spanish Steps. In those cases, Monti isn't right. But for most middle-of-the-road first-time visitors, Monti is the answer.
What's a mistake you see again and again that you wish you could prevent?
People book based on photos of a beautiful staircase or a pretty terrace without checking what's actually around the hotel. They arrive and discover their gorgeous hotel is 25 minutes from anything they want to see, on a busy commercial street with nothing nearby. The hotel itself is fine, but the location undermines the entire trip. Location is everything in Rome. The hotel is the container. The neighborhood is the trip.
Tell me about the moments when the right neighborhood pays off.
Late evening. You've had dinner, you're full of pasta and wine, you don't want to take a taxi or figure out a bus. You want to walk back through quiet streets, past illuminated fountains, hearing your own footsteps. That walk is the gift the right neighborhood gives you. The wrong neighborhood gives you a 40-minute trudge along a main road past closed shop fronts. Same dinner, completely different memory.
And the early morning?
The same gift in reverse. You wake up, you walk down to a bar where the regulars are already standing at the counter. You stand with them, you drink an espresso, you eat a cornetto, you see the city before the day starts. That's only possible if your hotel is in a neighborhood that has a real morning, not just a tourist morning.
Let's give listeners a final checklist. They've listened to this episode. They're now opening their booking site. What's the order of operations?
First, make a list of the 5 or 6 things you most want to do. Second, look at where those things are on a map and find the neighborhood that sits roughly in the middle. Third, set a budget per night and remember to add the city tax on top. Fourth, search within that neighborhood, in that budget. Fifth, when you have 3 or 4 candidates, check the exact address, not the marketing description. Sixth, read recent reviews for noise, location accuracy, air conditioning, and elevator. Seventh, if it's summer, confirm air conditioning explicitly. Eighth, book a refundable rate first, if possible, while you continue to compare. Ninth, accept that no hotel in Rome will be perfect, and that the goal is to optimize for the 3 or 4 things that matter most to you, not to find a unicorn that does everything.
That's a great checklist. And before we close out, where can listeners learn more about some of these neighborhoods we've talked about?
If you stay in Trastevere or near the Jewish ghetto, our 2 Sides of the Tiber tour in the app walks you through both neighborhoods with audio stories at each stop. And if you stay in the historic center, our Roman Rhapsody tour covers the Trevi, the Pantheon, and the streets in between. But that's for when you arrive. For now, the goal is just to book the right neighborhood.
So to wrap up, Giovanni, what's the one thing you want listeners to take away from this episode?
That your neighborhood is not a hotel. It's a daily experience. Choose it the way you'd choose a co-traveler. It will shape the texture of every single day. Pay a little more if you can to be in the right place. Read carefully, ask questions, ask for the tax receipt, and remember that the best room in the wrong neighborhood is worse than a modest room in the right one.
Beautifully put. Listeners, in our next episode, we get into the practical reality of arriving in Rome and moving around once you're there. We'll cover the 2 airports, the choice between the train and a taxi, when the metro is useful and when it isn't, and the walking distances that actually define a Rome trip. Giovanni, thanks as always.
Always a pleasure, Sarah. See you in the next one.
Until then, this has been Rome Before You Go. When you're ready to explore on the ground, continue with the Rome Audio Tour Guide offline app for self-guided walking tours, offline maps, and audio stories for every neighborhood you've just heard us describe. Safe travels, and we'll see you in the next episode.